This is the Jane Perlman Sanctuary, located in Glencoe, Illinois, in the United States of America. I'm going to be telling you about this construction, the building, the architecture. This is a unique structure. You'll probably never see another one like it, and it is specifically Jewish. Now let's go back to the Israelites are slaves in Egypt, and Moses is going to free them. He takes them out of Egypt through the Red Sea and put them in the wilderness. They wandered in that wilderness for 40 years before they found their promised land in Jerusalem. Moses went to Mount Sinai and asked God for some assistance here. God gave him 2 stone tablets that had written on them what are known as the 10 Commandments. Well, the people didn't care about that. They broke them and they created a gold idol, and Moses was not too happy about that, so he went to the mountain again, and God gave him another set of stone tablets. He took those down, and by this time the people were ready to accept them, to become a covenanted community by obeying these commandments. They still had a long way to go to Jerusalem. So they built what's known as the Ark of the Covenant. When they got to Jerusalem, King Solomon built them a temple, known as King Solomon's Temple. This was the first permanent structure for the Jewish people. In this place there were 3 different spaces. One of them was called the Holy of Holies, and in that space, the most sacred space in that temple, was placed that Ark of the Covenant with the 10 Commandments in it. It was not opened except for once a year by the high priest on the Day of Atonement. That temple was destroyed. So what they did do was began gathering in synagogues, what they call synagogues, which is a word that means gathering. What is a synagogue? What does it look like? There isn't a picture that comes to your mind because there is not a particular shape or kind of synagogue. The reason for this is that the Jews were moving a lot. They were exiled, they were persecuted. They didn't want to stand out. They didn't want a building that identified them as Jews. So they built things that fit in with the neighborhood. So this is one of those synagogues. And also that wall that the Ark is in is always facing Jerusalem to remind them of Solomon's temple. Moving along in history, the Jewish people came to this country after being persecuted in the early part of the 20th century and settled on the south side of Chicago. They didn't have anything, and they started from scratch, became entrepreneurs, and started small businesses. When they settled in more, they started moving north. They moved into the Skokie area, which is still a permanent settlement of Jewish peoples, and they moved north further. But those northern suburbs were not happy to have them there, and they excluded them from their private clubs and were not very welcoming. So those people moved farther north into Glencoe. They felt safe there. They felt they could do something of their own there. They bought a prime piece of property on Lake Michigan and next to a country club. And they decided to do absolutely the best possible synagogue in the world. So they hired the most famous architect they could find, Yamasaki, who was a Japanese architect, very well known, who created a gorgeous synagogue for them. Well, after a few years, they couldn't really fill that synagogue all the time, and they needed a smaller place along with that. So that's where the Jane Perlman Sanctuary came from. So it's very different in architecture from that one. But they also used a theology here that hadn't been done before. And that was created by Mircea Eliade, a Romanian Jew who came to Chicago, was on the faculty of the University of Chicago, became very famous, and wrote many books on his theology. The circle theology here, we have actually a square within a circle within another circle. The circle is a symbol of equality. And what's in between these 2 circles are stairways to get up to the balcony. Originally there were balconies in synagogues to separate the men from the women. In this case, that's not the situation. Anybody can sit in this balcony now. But it's just a remembrance of their history. But mainly the finishes in the interior come from places where the Jewish diaspora went. that really embrace where the Jews have gone in the world.